Hey, welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney and Fricke. Thanks for tuning in. All right, it's here, you guys. The first workshop I have planned for 2025 will be on January 20th and 21st. As you know, I don't do group coaching. I don't do one-on-one coaching. I don't do consultations. I do a handful of workshops a year, and this is where I deep dive, open my brain, and dump it in a way that gives you as much information as well as some practical insight so you can, tackle whatever the topic is. So this class, it's my Fix Your Income workshop that is specifically geared for people who are already in the real estate industry, meaning title processors, real estate agents, appraisers, contractors, you name it. If you support or are part of the real estate industry, but if you have on your 2025 goals to start investing to do your first or next deal, this is the class for you. I am going to deep dive, what is a deal? Why should you invest in real estate? What is necessary to succeed in real estate investing? How do you find these deals? How do you fund them? Whether you have money today, whether you can qualify with a bank or not. I'm going to include things like sharing about creative financing and whatnot. And this class will be a 2-day deep dive. Lunch will be included both days, and a 100+ page manual will be included as well. This is going to be in the greater New Orleans area, in person only. Guys, tickets are $397 for folks who are in the real estate industry. Get your ticket today at CourtneyFricke.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. All right. Shaun, welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. Man, I'm glad to have you on today. Talk to me about I'm thinking it's been like 2 or 3 maybe years we've known each other, maybe a little bit more.
Something like that.
And we've met through some conferences, that we've attended and various things like that. You've got ties down here into the really the Mississippi Gulf Coast and with family. So I've loved getting to know you. So I want to introduce you to the audience. So tell people who you are, where are you based out of, and what do you do today in real estate?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate. So I'm Shaun Stevens. I run a company called Chillicothe Investors. Chillicothe is a small town in Southern Ohio, and it's home. You mentioned having ties to down south. So my dad lives in Biloxi, and I was actually born in Louisiana. So I've been around quite a bit, but ultimately this is home. So to me, this is where, home is where you invest. Home is so much easier to find, to find opportunities and know what opportunities look like.
Sure.
You called me a few weeks back about a mobile home park, halfway across the country from me. And, I went to go start researching it. And, being 1,000 miles away, I don't know what I don't know. So everything that I'm trying to do is a really difficult, I got to think about this and think about that and think about this. And I don't know the neighborhood, and I don't know, what street it's on. I don't know what's around the corner.
Exactly.
So for me, being right here in my own little community, I know the neighbor, I know what they paid for their house. I know what they say about this house.
Exactly.
That makes it.
So what do you mainly do today? And I love that. And I'm going to deep dive into, why you invest, where you invest. And look, we're selling that park because I want to be closer to my backyard with my investments as well. So I definitely hear that. Talk to me about, what do you mainly do today? Do you flip, wholesale, rent? What do you do?
Yeah. So we mostly rent. We'll probably flip 15 or 20 houses this year, but we usually buy 50 or 60 houses a year and keep, 30 or 40 of them, whatever that number works out to be. So this year I've been on kind of a calling spree. So, kind of taking the bottom, the stuff that I don't want to own forever, and shooting it in the head, sending it down the road, finding someone else who's better suited for it, and trying to buy some really nice, A class or at least A minus, B plus class single family homes. I don't know what the market will bring in the future, but I know having a nice single family home in a nice neighborhood is always a good spot to be. There's always a buyer for that. There's always a renter for that.
Mhm. So the Ohio, people talk about Ohio being places where you can buy houses for 20,000, 10,000, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, is that when you talk about, really culling your portfolio and trying to like improve the quality, right?
Sure.
Um, how do you decide which properties that you're like, hey, I want to sell these?
hmm So for me, that is, and everybody's going to have their own answer to that. For me, that is anything that I don't see appreciation in. So my number was anything that's worth less than $100,000.
Mhm.
Anything that's worth less than that, and I just don't see a future in it, then it needs to go. Um, so yeah, that's where I started. But then also, I've got some older homes that are, 100-year-old homes. Um, Someday, or maybe I've had a tenant in there for 10 years, 15 years. Someday I know that house is going to need a bunch of work. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be a pain in my neck. And so if somebody else wants to deal with that now, then that makes my life easier in the future.
Yeah, I get that. So it's, the there's things about a home, even when it's older, you can go in and do a full renovation. But
hmm
that is a lot of capital. It's a
Yeah,
headache. It's time off from being able to rent it, in between tenants.
great.
And so it's a distraction, right, from your
Yeah,
other stuff, right?
you
Uh,
mentioned you mentioned like those $20,000 homes you can buy in Ohio.
yeah,
The thing is, most of those to make them nice, you buy them for 20, you put 60 into them, and they're worth 80. So when I say there's no future, that's what I mean.
yeah,
Yeah, you can buy it for 20 and you can rent it for $600 a month or whatever, $700 a month, and maybe you put 5 grand in it. But I don't want to be that guy. That's I don't want to be the slumlord. Um, there's good parts and bad parts to being kind of in one small location.
mhm,
One of the bad parts, or one of the limiting parts, I'll say, is if you put out a crappy product, everyone in your community knows it. Everyone in your community says, "Oh, that's the guy that has the piece of crap down the street."
sure. That's the slumlord. Yeah.
Yep, yep,
So you're saying, you can get it for 20. It really needs 60 in work. So you're all in for 80 and it's only worth 80.
right.
Because look, at the end of the day, here's the issue with low income properties is a water heater is still a water heater,
hmm
right? Regardless if your rent is 400, 700, or 1400.
Yeah,
It just
eight
depends
thousand
on the
bucks.
size for the house. Yeah.
Yeah,
Same thing for a roof,
right,
and you may change a little bit of the quality, but the price, there's not a huge swing in price.
right,
Um, and then, so you're saying people might buy them for 20, put lipstick on a pig and put just a little bit in it. But that's why they keep in that cycle of, they're deteriorating.
right.
There's deferred maintenance. Uh,
hmm
that's the slumlord model,
It
right?
is. Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So you mentioned being all in the same area. So Chillicothe, right? I'm saying that right?
Yes.
So Chillicothe, that
That's
you said South Ohio.
yeah.
Okay. Is it near any big cities or anything like that?
We're kind of between Columbus, Cincinnati, and Dayton.
Okay.
So
And
an hour south of Columbus.
so and you said that's your main area that you buy, that
Yes.
county.
Yeah.
You told me earlier, what was the figure you told me earlier?
We're about 98% inside this county.
Yeah, so like I mean almost everything you own is in that
Right.
one county. That's huge. I mean, I'm not looking at my buy box right now, but I
Yeah.
want to say mine has like 15 on it. And
hmm
I'm not gonna lie, I'm jealous. I'm like, it reminds me of when Pete talked about that lady who came to a meeting and said all of her rentals with it were within 2.5 miles. I'm like, and he
Yeah.
got really jealous. I'm like, this feels similar. Um, Because as much as it takes, like, to be honest, when I was doing a ton of flipping and wholesaling, when I was doing volume, we
Hmm.
actually had to add in Louisiana, we call them parishes, right? We
Yeah,
had to add parishes, and then I went to Mississippi because the only way to be able to handle the volume was like basically have a bigger map. You
right.
can hit more, right?
Hmm.
So how do you do the volume being in such a small area?
Um, I guess, are you thinking more about managing it or finding it?
Finding it. Yeah.
Oh, so, the one thing that kind of drives me nuts about people, when I meet people, especially from other locations, but even my local people, um, there are opportunities everywhere. I mean, I kind of made a joke a couple of days ago, but I really want to do it. I'm just like, as a personal challenge, I want to pick a street in the city and I want to walk and door knock one street and buy a house in one day. You
Mhm.
know, say, hey, I'm going to buy a house on Church Street today,
Right.
and guarantee you, I, I mean, I'm saying like 95%, I could I could buy a house on Church Street today.
Is this in your backyard or in any city?
Uh, I think this is anywhere.
Yeah.
The thing is, nobody's out doing the work. Nobody wants to put in the effort of, you know, tracking down every single owner on a street
Right.
and just, making friends with them. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's see
I
what your
think
situation is.
I think that's huge. A few people over the years, I think that is something that any operator, if they know what they're doing, they believe they can do that too. And I think that's huge, right? Um,
Hmm.
because it's not rocket science. It's just not
Hmm.
easy. And people
Yeah.
try to avoid the easy, right?
Hmm.
And so for the longest time I was like, hey, to get volume, a lot of times that's usually when you're doing one strategy, right? Like maybe just wholesaling.
Yeah, sure.
You might need to have a certain amount to be able to find enough motivated sellers to discount it plus your fee, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, okay, so you do 98% of your business in that one county. Talk to me about, over the years, or have you been mostly just residential? Because I want to say I just you guys have a park, right? That y'all just
Yeah.
acquired a park.
So we've got a few parks now.
Mhm.
Um, for a long time, it was just residential, just single family residential.
Yeah.
And then just in the last 3 or 4 years, I picked up a handful of commercial properties, just like commercial properties.
Mhm.
And then, oh, we've got three trailer parks, maybe 3 or 4 trailer parks.
Mhm.
And oh, right now, we just purchased one a few weeks back, and we're getting ready to demolish it, put in new homes.
Yeah.
So that one will be fun.
Yeah. That will be fun.
Yeah, that one's kind of exciting.
And so, as you're getting into, like, so you're doing some commercial, good bit of residential. In the residential, you're picking off the ones that are the oldest, that are not, they're not really going anywhere, right? Like
Right.
and so why, if they're appreciating, are they also cash flowing?
Yeah, so the ones I sold, to be honest, most of those had long-term tenants that are probably going to stay forever.
Yeah.
But I just know that the quality of the property
Yeah.
is dwindling because, one of them was the first rental house that I ever bought. I just sold it Friday, and
I don't know
first,
whether to congratulate you or console you.
no, it was great. First rental house I ever bought, first tenant I ever put in is still there. And I did a half-ass job fixing it up because sorry, I probably shouldn't be swearing on
No,
here.
you're fine.
Um,
You're fine.
anyways, I did a crappy job fixing it up because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to figure out how to get some rent.
Right.
And this lady's lived in there for 10 years, and she doesn't live fancy, by any means. Like it's rough, and she's happy. She pays me. But I know someday that house is going to require a bunch of work,
Yeah.
and I just don't need any more projects. It's so much easier for me to go find a great deal than it is to rehab a house.
Why is that?
there's deals everywhere, you know. Um, I've got a friend who he did some development a few years back, and he said, the one thing he's told me over and over, there's no faster way to make money than to go and find a great deal. You know, when you're developing, for instance, you're buying land, building a house, you're going to Lowe's and you're paying retail for all the materials. You're paying retail for maybe you got a deal on the lot, but you're paying retail for everything. So yeah, there's a markup in there, but it's just you're doing a job, you're getting paid.
Yeah.
Um, when you are going and buying a house, a lot of times you're buying a situation, and because of that situation, you get a discount.
Right.
Well, sometimes that's a huge discount, because it's a huge situation. And, um, because of what we do, we get good at fixing situations and fixing problems. And
Hmm.
so one person's, hey, my house is falling in or in foreclosure, for us is like, oh, that's going to cost me $12,000. I'll write the check, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
or whatever it is,
Yeah.
It's when you learn to solve those problems, they get dramatically easier.
It, I can really resonate with, I have made way more money solving problems than I have just renovating properties, right? Um,
Absolutely.
because like, yeah, when you renovate, you can force the appreciation of a property.
Mhm,
To be honest, I think it was 2019, I started having the realization. So 5 years ago, I started having the realization that I hated big renovations.
mhm,
So I had got a deal under contract. Actually, I bought it, and it was one that I bought subject to a whole bunch of liens and judgments, and I was going to work through all the title issues.
mhm.
So what did my dumb butt do? I went and gutted the house. I ordered the lumber stack. I put a new roof on it,
Great.
and
Yeah.
and then literally it was hanging out with Pete and them that one time I just learned it was in that deal that I realized I was about to put myself through something I hated,
Hmm.
a full gut, renovation.
Yeah.
And so I solved the title issues and then I sold it like with clear title, and I
Hmm.
and I made over six figures, but
Yeah.
I sold it to a contractor who made it beautiful, and I know they made money, like they did great.
Hmm.
But I was so relieved, and I sold it with the new roof, with the lumber stack, gutted as is, ready to go.
Yeah.
But I was so relieved I didn't have to like manage that baby
Yeah.
anymore,
I
and
had a
yeah.
very similar realization probably around the same time. I bought my first trailer park, and I bought it, no money down, uh, no interest or very little interest. Um, just, but it was a disaster, A, the park was a disaster, but B, the paperwork was a disaster.
Mhm.
There were some legal issues, there were some issues with the neighbor.
Yeah.
And, so I went in and I spent a year working on this park, just there all the time, trying to fix the tenants, fix the houses, so on and so forth. Um, Ultimately, a year down the road, I had also fixed the legal situation with it, and someone came along and offered me $100,000 profit over everything I had in it,
Mhm.
and you know, I had basically the legal part was what made me money. The rest of it didn't make me anything. It just cost me a whole bunch of time, a whole bunch of effort, and so I took my 100 grand and walked, and I was happy as could be about that. But it was a good realization that I made way more money dealing with the paperwork than I did with the bricks and sticks, or sticks and wheels.
Exactly. I have a quote here on my desk. It's by Jimmy Napier that
Hmm.
says the most money we will ever make is by thinking. And he went on to also say that real estate is a thinking person's game. And
Hmm.
and it is that idea that so many people watch HGTV and they're like, I'm gonna go make my money by renovating all these houses.
Sure.
And yes, it will make you money, but it's not where the real money is. The real money is in like knowing what to do.
Right.
And so you've done some creative type deals over the years, plenty
Mhm.
of creative type deals. Um, so obviously you just talked about buying a park, with seller financing,
Sure.
with, some great terms. Um, what are some other, Well, let's do this. Over all the years, when you first got started, how were you acquiring these properties? And then how did you progress with acquisitions over the years?
Okay. So the first house, the one I just sold Friday,
Mhm.
um, I was waiting tables for a living, had no money, no credit, etc. Um, oh, I was flipping cars at the time. I was always buying and flipping and trading cars and whatever. And I ended up with three pretty nice cars. So I figured out, if you go to the bank to buy a house, they're like, hey, we need 10% down, 20% down, whatever. We need appraisal fees. We need all this stuff. And it's going to take a month, at
Mhm.
least. And you need good credit and you need, so on and so forth. To get a car loan, you take a car title in and you say, hey, I need money. And you walk out, an hour later with money. Um,
Right.
so I went in and got three car loans and bought my first property. And, you know, uh, 6 months or a year down the road, I refinanced that property and went and bought more property.
With more
So
car loans?
no, I left the car loans in place and paid those monthly.
Hmm.
Um,
What if you
and
got more money from the refinance and you use the refinance money?
well, so the house was free and clear because I used the car loans to buy it.
Yeah.
So when I refied it, it was just a
Oh,
cash out from
yeah.
zero.
Yeah. And so
So,
then you use the cash out to go buy more properties.
mhm,
Okay. So I
yeah,
love the hustle. I love thinking outside the box. So from day one, you're thinking, you're using car loans. You used what you have to get what you want, to get what you need.
yeah. And it wasn't even so much thinking outside the box. It was thinking, this is my only option.
Yeah.
What do I have? And like, yeah, what you said, use what you have to get what you want, to get what you need.
Yeah.
And this was my only option if I wanted to buy a rental property. I tried other ideas, and now knowing what I know now, yeah, I had lots of other options. But to me, this was the only thing that I had.
No, I love that. Because so many people, again, they're like, oh, well, the bank would take too long, or I don't have, or the bank won't give me a loan or whatever.
I tell you
Uh,
what. So let me jump in just for a second. Um, the bank is such of a limiting belief. Do you know how many banks there are? So when I went to get that refinance, I said no money, no credit, waiting tables for a living.
mhm.
Um, so I called the bank, and they said no. And I said why? And they said, well, because of this and this. And I said, do you think other banks would do it? And they said, oh no, if we can't do it, no one will. So I'm like, I don't like that. So I called a different bank, and I said, hey, I talked to this one, and they told me this is why they can't do it. Well, the second bank said, well, we can get past that. That's fine. So we kept working, and eventually we got to another standstill. They
Yeah,
couldn't do it. So, but what I learned there was this bank said no because of this, and this bank said that was okay, but they can't because of this.
right,
And so I spent a day, and I think I called 35 banks, 33 banks, something like that. Just spent one whole day on the phone,
right.
and eventually I found the one.
Yeah.
So,
That's that's wild. And you actually just gave me an idea on a deal. I'm working on a deal right now that, like, I'm having issues raising private money for. I'm
mhm,
having issues like bringing on partners for it. I'm like, what the heck? And I feel like it's a great deal with a safe,
sure.
um, position. And so I'm like, um, and it's like one of those things where it's like, be willing to put in the work, right?
Mhm,
Like the fact that, yeah, you went and worked at that park every day for a year, you
mhm.
still made money, right?
I did.
Learning where to point the action, but then, like, hey, if someone says no, like, the grind still has a place. I know we all try to I guess, get promoted from or retire from the grind at some point, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
But, like, there is power to just getting out there and doing the work.
absolutely.
As you were saying earlier with, like, going and door knocking on a street, you
Mhm.
absolutely you get in front of people. If you just talk to enough people, you might be able to find one.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, I love that, man. So okay, so doing that, and so then over the years, when you started to do more creative deals, what got you into doing like, I guess, continue doing, but more creative deals?
Sure. So when I after I bought those, those couple homes, um, I got invited to our local RIA, and you know, everybody's going around the room, hey, I'm Shaun, I do this, whatever. And at the end of the meeting, this guy comes up to me and kind of taps on my shoulder and says, hey, you kind of sound like you know what you're doing. If you ever need money for a deal, call me.
Mhm.
And gives me his card. And, up until this point, I've been, calling 35 banks trying to get a loan, begging and pleading, trying to figure out what can I do next. So I met him, and he's a Millerite. So
Mhm.
I think
So
most
from
people on
Pat
the
Miller. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he was a Millerite. That's how I got introduced to Pete, and ultimately you, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, he so he does a lot, or he done a lot of financing for me, but also taught me a lot about how deals work, how money works, and ultimately we done, I don't know, probably a couple hundred deals together.
Hey guys, Courtney Fricke here. We've got Aussie Steve. And look, if you have a deal that needs to get moved, Southeast Louisiana, even in South Mississippi, we're your folks. We are the largest dispo company, really in the greater New Orleans area, even Southeast Louisiana. We have great contacts in South Mississippi as well. Steve, why do we move more deals than others?
Just we're very deep in this market. So Greater New Orleans can be really confusing for national wholesalers. The comps are hard. We change block for block. We got flood zones. We get a lot of hurricanes and the likes, and just a lot of the national platforms don't have the buyers on their list. So we are deep with buyers, but we're deep with relationships, which is really important in this market. So we love JVing with out-of-state investors.
Like I said, we do a ton of business with other investors. So go to homebuyerlouisiana.com/Courtney, fill out the information. We'll get in touch with you and we'll move this deal along.
And um, you know, when I figured out that not everybody just needs the highest and best cash offer, that was a big mindset shift.
Yeah.
Because I always thought, as I think everyone pretty much thinks when they get started, you know, it doesn't matter what's going on in this person's life. All that matters is how much money can I give them,
Yeah.
and that's not true. So
Exactly.
yeah, when I learned to start listening and paying attention, and you know, thinking about, instead of how can I get this house, how can I make their situation better?
Right.
You know.
I love that. And that relationship, so the guy, you meet him at one of the local RIAs. He sounds like he's an experienced old timer guy.
Mhm.
And something I've learned with the guys who are, so Pete talks about, you've got the dreamer, which is people who are wanting to get into investing. You've got the starter who are starting to do the beginning, steps, getting into their first deal, stuff like that. Then you've got
Mhm.
state builders, people who are actively building or perfecting, trading up their portfolio. And then
Yeah.
you've got enders, people, they're financially free. They're, they're living off of, their stuff. One thing I learned with the enders is that a lot of times they're looking for estate builders to kind of hitch their wagon to,
Mhm.
and say, hey, we still want to stay in the game, we just don't want to do all the legwork, and so what did it look like to build that relationship with this guy who's experienced, he has knowledge, he has money, and
Mhm.
obviously it sounds like you learned a lot from him and y'all did a ton of deals together. Were all those deals where it was like a straight interest-based loan, like what did that relationship look like?
Yeah. So, after my time of being at the bank, begging and pleading for money all the time,
Yeah.
um, he came up to me and said, hey, if you ever need money, call me. Well, I so I think I called him maybe the very next morning, like a little kid on Christmas with a deal. Hey, let's do this. Um, that deal was not it probably wasn't a great deal, but and it was a ton of work. It was a completely gutted house,
Yeah.
and like I said, a ridiculous amount of work. But I knew that whatever it took, I was going to make sure and take care of this guy. I wanted to make sure that he gets paid. I'm going to do exactly what I told him I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where it started. We done a lot of deals where, he would charge me an interest rate and then a portion of the upside. So someday when we sell, or if it's a flip, when it sells, then maybe we're going to share the profit. But the nice thing with him was, again, I had no money, nothing out of pocket. So all I'm doing is showing up for work. And, if we flip a house and I make 30 grand, well, then, that's better than the money I was making working a W-2 job.
Right.
And like I said, nothing out of pocket, essentially no risk,
Mm-hmm.
but I never looked at it as no risk. I always looked at it as, I'm going to take care of this guy, whatever I got to do.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. So, a lot of times people, they're like, hey, funding. So for a long time, it was really easy to find funding for my deals because capital is cheap, right?
sure,
And
yeah.
as the market has fluctuated, I am starting to lean to more like equity position type loans
Hmm.
or like equity kickers or something like that, where, hey,
Right,
charge me an interest rate, but here's an equity kicker.
sure.
And I was actually talking, with John Schaub has really encouraged me toward this of like, a lot of people are just wanting to get their money working for them. But if,
Hmm.
I found that a lot of people who had money were sophisticated investors and they wanted to earn a certain type of return.
Right,
Like I can't pay 12% interest on a rental,
right.
like,
Yeah.
and so, so I get it. So it's, hey, how can we, in the same way, we make money by helping sellers, it's
Hmm.
how can I get money? It's how can I help people, right?
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And so my other thought here is that I know you've done some other types of creative deals.
Hmm.
Um, so let's talk about the options you've done in with your when you had a property under contract for cash,
Yeah,
uh,
sure.
and you wanted to wholesale it. Talk through that.
Okay,
Why did you start doing that? And then what does that deal look like?
sure. So, um, I guess I should start with I've never been really a wholesaler. Uh, I kind of tax averse, and wholesalers pay a lot of taxes.
Yeah, it's
Um,
active income. It's like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's just you might as well have a job and be getting a paycheck.
Hmm.
So what I found is there's a lot of I said I don't really want those $20,000 houses. Well, a lot of people do, you know, um, and they're also the ones who are telling me that there's no deals to be found and they just can't find anything to buy.
Yeah.
Well, so when I get those calls and someone says, "Hey, I've got a $20,000 house for sale," what most people I think would do is they would say, "Hey, I've got this house for sale, for 25 grand, or you can buy this contract for 5 grand and then buy this house for 20."
Hmm.
Um, again, that's not what I was wanting to do. I want to build wealth long term. I don't want a little paycheck right now. I want a payday when I'm 60, 80,
Yeah.
you know? So what I would do is I would let them close on the house in exchange for an option. So my option says, in that case, we're going to buy this house for 20 grand. Or I'm sorry, you're going to buy this house for 20 grand. I'm going to give you $1,000 up front. And so really you're buying it for 19 ultimately, but I'm going to give you $1,000 for an option. And my option says that I can buy half that house for 10 grand for the next 40 years. And so, oh, then my option just kind of hangs out. They
How
get
many
to
years?
40.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, 40 years is root title. So I think, um, that's as long as I think you can do. I don't really understand going any further than that.
Right.
Um,
So why half the house?
well, so I want them to have the incentive to take care of the house.
Right.
So if I'm going to buy the whole house for 20 grand, they have no reason to take care of that place. You
Right.
know?
Run into the ground,
Yeah,
just get cash flow.
Right. Yeah. So if they take good care of it though, and we keep letting our government inflate the money away, maybe in 20 years down the road, maybe that's $100,000 house.
Right.
Um, just for inflation, whatever. I don't think those houses really appreciate. I think they just maybe keep up with inflation if you maintain them.
Right.
But either way, I'll take some inflation. That's okay. In this scenario. So I'll take half of the profit over that 20. So in that case, if it were worth 100, you know, uh, they get 40, I get 40, and they get their 20 back. So I guess they get 60 and I get 40.
Mhm.
And all I did was put $1,000 up.
And
And
so that's huge. So a lot of people who are wholesaling are just
mhm,
thinking about today,
right.
right? And you're saying my today is okay. I'm
Mhm,
really trying to sow seeds for my tomorrow.
sure.
And with a pure option, which is what you're doing, you
Hmm.
know, a pure option, you're secured against title, right?
Yeah.
In the public records. And
Hmm.
really you're saying, hey, look, I'll give you a deal. I'll give you access to this deal, who they again otherwise are saying deals like this don't exist,
Right.
for the right to be able to buy it or half of it, at today's price. Um, and just saying, hey, I'm just betting on the government, whether it's the government printing more money and causing properties to rise in value,
Hmm.
or appreciation, like maybe something comes to that area and causes properties to go up, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Just look at the past 40 years and say, hey, what does that look like?
Right.
Um and then say, at the end of the day, what's your risk, but also what's your potential? You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
that I love that idea. Um, do you ever get pushback on that from other investors?
Yeah. So, the people who aren't my buyers say, well, why would someone do that? Why wouldn't they just go find the deal?
Yeah,
Well, you're not my buyer. Go find a deal. Good luck to you. Um,
yeah,
my buyer is someone who's just looking for cash flow.
yeah,
They're going to take care of that property just enough to keep it just like it is.
right,
Maybe make it a little bit better, but they're not going to make it fancy. Um, they are just looking for something that's going to cash flow them $300 a month on
yeah,
a $20,000 investment. And how can you go wrong with that? They're happy with that.
right.
So,
Um, I mean, and at the end of the day, like going back to the bank situation, if
mhm,
someone says no, keep asking. Is
right.
is and there's plenty of people who are like, um, you know, a lot of investors look at real estate a lot if they value different things. And so
Hmm.
you're looking for the people who value cash flow.
Hmm.
And versus someone who values, appreciation,
Right.
uh, and some other things like that. So I love that, man. What I've been, well, let me actually do this. So you talk about the majority of your stuff, 98% of everything you own being in Chillicothe, right?
Yeah.
So that county. Um, has it been easy for you to attract deals as far as referrals and things like that because you've been so, isolated in an area?
Yes. When, let's see. So I get a lot of calls, when you're in a small town, of course, it doesn't take a lot to become, pretty known. So most people know what you do.
Right.
Um, and then if you just really, really, really take care of your name. So when I go look at a house, um, almost every time I will tell them, hey, here's what I think a realtor could get you. A realtor could get you 100 grand for this house tomorrow, or they would put it on the market for 100 grand.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to give you 70, and that's the best I can give you. But I can close right now, and you don't have any headaches.
Yeah.
Um, and so I almost every situation when I go look at a house, I give them my best advice. A
Yeah.
lot of times, my best advice is, hey, you should sell this to me. But a lot of times, it's, hey, here's the options you have. Here's what I would do if I were you. But you know, here's your options. and that gets you a lot of clout, or it gets you a lot of, those people appreciate you,
Yeah,
and
when you
those
do good
people,
business. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, those people appreciate you, and they will share your name, share your information,
Yeah.
and that probably brings me more deals than just about anything else.
Yeah. Would you say you're one of the larger buyers or in your county?
Yeah, yeah, I would say I'm in the top two or three. Yeah.
And so here's the thing. I think there's something to be said of people who are a mile wide and an inch
Mhm.
deep versus an inch wide and a mile deep in the sense
Sure.
of where do you do business? I
Hmm.
am pulling my business in tighter
Hmm.
because, I run a, 100% referral and repeat business
Hmm.
model,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And how much would you say referrals or repeat business make up your business model?
Um, as far as sellers, I did a big graph recently, but I don't remember the numbers now. I want to say 30 to 35% was some kind of a referral.
Yeah.
It was,
And that's huge. And that's just coming organically.
yeah, yeah. If I remember right, it was something like 30 or 35% was referral, 30 or 35% was just, door knocking, cold calling, you
Yeah.
know,
Direct
I
sales.
yeah, I called it hustle, just whatever it takes. And then maybe another 20% was auctions or MLS or whatever else.
Yeah. Well, that means one third of your deals come from someone sending it to you.
Yeah,
Let's just say another third comes from you. The sale processes are out there, MLS, auction, stuff like that. And
right.
then the other, roughly the other third is you going out there and finding it. And when you work a small area,
Hmm.
to do the amount of deals you do every year, you
Hmm.
got to go at it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so I can respect that for sure. So I wanna kind of deviate a little bit from here, but you know, real estate's not the only asset that you like to own. Talk
Right.
to me about some of the other asset types that you like to own, and then we're gonna kind of talk into the why and what role do they play in your wealth building journey.
Sure. So other assets.
Other asset types, yeah,
Yeah. So I really enjoy Bitcoin. I'm a firm believer in Bitcoin. Um, less because I think it's going to make me rich, and more because I think it's uh, the right thing for the world to have sound money and have, not back to our inflation talk earlier, where the government can just print money forever. And, that's great for those of us who understand it and can get ahead of it. But for the world in general, it's a horrible thing.
right.
Um, so yeah, I'm a big supporter of Bitcoin. Um, other asset types, I've really taken a liking to small businesses. I think in the last 5 years, I've really found a niche, and I haven't taken as much advantage of it as I would like. But do you have any idea how many old people there are, in their 65, 75, 80, who have a small business, who their children don't want it, have no interest, and these people, they love their customers, and they love what they do,
Right.
and they have no idea what to do with it. Do you know how easy it is to talk them into financing for you?
I read somewhere less than 5% of businesses have an exit plan.
Hmm.
And so, when it's not something you can easily sell. So when a
Hmm.
house is not easily sellable,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Um, or like they don't, for example, they can't fathom how they're gonna sell it.
Right.
Um, Financing is so easy for me to get.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I can only imagine what that looks like for businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same. And honestly, it's probably even easier because, these people, a lot of them still need the money.
Yeah,
They still need the income, and, they are business owners. So they're not, they don't think if they get $100,000 that they're going to live on that for the next 20 years, you
right.
know? they know they'd be much better off with $600 a month.
So do you see yourself as the operator type, or are you, buying these and like, building staff to run it or bringing on operating partners? What does that look like for you?
So it's kind of, I'm not the operator.
Mhm.
I'll leave that part there. Otherwise, yes, it's either finding staff or it's more partners. Finding a partner that wants to really get involved and do the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Somebody that wants to be there. And so often, and I've done this with houses a lot too. I'll go find a house. I just bought one, a little house on the East End, not exciting. Um, but I found this house I could get into with $0 down, subject to a $40,000 mortgage, and it needs work though. So I went to a contractor friend and said, "Hey, um, how about this? How about you come in and you fix this house up, and you're going to be responsible for all the maintenance, all the repairs, all the costs to get it turned over. But we'll split it. We'll be 50-50."
Mhm.
So I now have half of a house that I done nothing other than find a deal.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing in a business setting.
Mhm.
Um, and it's kind of great because this contractor's going, "Hey, I own half a house and all I got to do is fix it up." For them it's a win. For me, I did nothing. I own half a house.
Right.
Bring
So,
people in.
and I've done plenty of partnerships over the years for myself.
Mhm.
These, and I'm assuming this is a contract that you've known for a while. You've got an established relationship
Sure.
with, seen how they
Yeah.
operate.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, partnerships, I love them. And even
Hmm.
though they haven't always gone according to plan, I
Right.
still see value in them. And I still keep coming back to the partnership table of saying,
Hmm.
hey, should I consider a partnership on this deal? Right.
Yeah.
Because it's been able to get deals done. And so um, I love that you're suggesting that, you know, in the event that, something like that, how do you protect yourself from it going bad?
So here's I really, I've mentioned partnerships over and over and over throughout this talk.
Mhm.
I actually have zero partnerships.
Mhm.
What I have is um, one of us owns it, either me or the other person, and the other one has an option to purchase half.
Mhm.
And maybe they have a lease to get half too, or something like that.
Yeah.
But when somebody's the owner, it's really clear who's in charge,
Yeah.
you know? And if I'm not the owner, I know that going in,
Mm.
this person's in charge. This is their house and they're trying to make money. And if they do, I make money too. That's great. I'm happy. So, I've heard the old saying, the only ship that doesn't float is a partnership or something like that. I don't remember how it goes,
Yeah, the only ship
but
that doesn't sail is a partnership or something like you're
yeah,
right. It's something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
the one that always sinks something. Yeah. So like I said, I've got nothing, no deals where, hey, we are actual partners in that, we have some kind of partnership, LLC, nothing. Everything is one person owns it, the other person has an option to purchase, you know.
So I love that. So I've done the LLCs and
Mhm.
I've unwound one. I'm in the process of unwinding two others.
Mhm.
Eventually over time, once we get the deal sold,
Sure.
things like that.
Hmm.
Don't regret them.
Right. Yeah.
I lean more to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Splitting up the benefits, right?
Hmm.
And saying, hey, look, so one partner will get the, depreciation benefits of owning the house, things like that. The other one is going to be able to maybe write off the rent or whatever. Like they might have some different things that they might be able to, you know, different things in which they can benefits they can get. And it really is based on at that point where it's like almost like, hey, you take ownership, not necessarily physical ownership, but like maybe you're the one who's out there managing it, so you're going to be the one who gets the lease and the master lease, the ability to
Hmm.
sublet, right?
Right.
um hey, I need the tax benefits, or hey, I'm putting the money out, I need the tax benefits. Okay, you're going to get the title,
Hmm.
and that right there, it's the beauty of understanding the different benefits. But I'll be honest, I'm leaning more towards that here moving forward, and
Hmm.
getting away from not only the Corporate Transparency Act and like creating new entities
Yeah.
and all that stuff, but like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
roll our eyes formally here. I'm
We
like
just talked about that this morning. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I like, well, so I'm like, I'm trying to simplify my life here. And so I'm like, for bookkeeping, filing, for the IRS, all that, I am trying to downgrade my companies, keep it simple, and then, but yet still go out and do these partnerships with people who have proven themselves trustworthy and, all this stuff. But then say, hey, let's do it this way.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that. And
Hmm.
so, but to recap earlier, you were talking about the Bitcoin and stuff like that. So for you,
Hmm.
that's not necessarily a wealth building tool in the sense of like, I'm gonna make money here. It's more like it's a belief of how you believe currency should go. Did I hear that right?
Pretty much. I mean, I really do think, uh, if I were betting, which I guess technically I am by putting money there. Um, if I were betting, I think it's going to continue to go up. I think it's got a long ways to go. And I wouldn't be surprised to see $1 million Bitcoin in a few years. Um, However, I'm a real estate investor, and that's because I can control it, and I have a lot of influence on the price.
Hmm.
With
Can't
Bitcoin,
influence Bitcoin.
no. So that's the reason I say, like, you know, I don't put money in there thinking for sure that, hey, this is going to be worth $1 million. I I put money in there because, you know, A, I do think it is going to, continue to go up. I think it's going to continue to appreciate. Um, but B, really, I'm more of a proponent to the idea.
It's like you're taking a position
Yeah.
and you're like saying, hey, I'm not necessarily doing it for the financial benefits, although I think those are there, but I'm really just saying, hey, I'm going to park some money here because I believe that, I'm taking a position that I believe this is where we should go, or I hope we go,
Sure.
or, it benefit us if we go.
Yeah.
Um, and
I put in a little bit every week. I'm always telling people they should own some Bitcoin, and I don't feel like I could have that talk if I'm not putting my own money there.
Mhm.
So,
So yeah, pitting a little bit every week. I mean, it's the idea again. It's you're taking a position.
mhm,
You're still diversified, right? With
mhm,
you've got your rentals, you've got your options. Sounds like you're also still doing some flips,
mhm,
stuff like that. And so I'm gonna ask you the question I ask everyone
mhm.
is, what is a lesson that if you learned it sooner, your your path, your success journey would have, maybe come along quicker? What do
Mhm.
you wish you learned sooner along your journey?
I wish I learned sooner. Um, Probably just to really listen to people, really listen to not, we talked earlier about, people just, so many people think that a seller just wants the highest and best price. And, whatever the highest price is what they're going to take.
Right,
When I go and talk to people, it is 2% about the price, 98% about what's going on in their world.
right,
And learning that has gotten me so many deals. Someone asked me the other day, what's your closing rate when you go look at a property?
right.
And, I don't track it, but my guess is I probably look at 4 to 5 houses a week. Well, not now because I'm trying to slow down a little bit, but I, usually look at 4 to 5 houses a week and buy one a week, one and a half a week. So it sounds like it's 20 or 25%. And had I been at that kind of close rate for the last 10 years, oh, we'd have a lot of houses. So, um, but the reason that I closed, that pie is because I'm listening.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. And I think that's huge. I mean, I don't think deals are found. I think they're created.
Mhm.
And, yeah, it's getting in front of them, but I can't tell you how many times I've sat in front of sellers where I know I'm not the only investor that came,
Mhm.
but I was the only one who heard what they were doing, what they needed, and gave them an option. Deals get done because what you offer is better than what they currently have,
Great.
right?
Yeah.
And not enough people listen, right?
Mhm.
And so I love it. Man, I've enjoyed our talk today.
Yeah, same.
If people want to get in touch with you, whether it's they've got a deal in Chillicothe, whether they want to talk with you about Bitcoin or just reach out to you, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Chillicothe Investors on Facebook, or just find me, Shaun Stevens, on Facebook.
Okay,
Um,
put that in the show notes.
okay, yeah, sounds good.
Yep,
And that's probably simplest bet.
I love that, man. And I've appreciated our talk. I appreciate how you're out there putting in the work. As an you're you're planting seeds for today, but you're also planting seeds for tomorrow. I love what you're doing. I love that you're doing it in a certain area. That encourages me. And look, man, you don't give up. So
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that. I love that. Well, look, thanks for the talk today.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, back to the idea of, if you can't find a deal, look harder, you know?
Look harder. Exactly. Look harder and listen harder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I love that, man. Well, appreciate your time today. And yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks.